Coming off a 72-17 victory over ETSU, Tennessee's got a big game this week heading up against Georgia. And another thing we were going to talk about today is the polls and the upsets. And with that being said, welcome back to the All Sports Pass. My name's Eli. We got Max here. And welcome back to another video. We got a lot to talk about. And before we get into it, you already know I got to start with the verse of the day. And today's verse comes from Hebrews 4:12, and it says, "For the word of God is living and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart." And also, before we get into this, leave a like, subscribe for more Tennessee content. Without further ado, let's begin talking. So, of course, Tennessee coming off a 72-17 win over ETSU. And I have to say this, that now I wasn't able to watch the game, but I was able to watch like the highlights. Because I'm just work wanted me in, so I had to unfortunately report there of all days. But it's fine though. But however, Joey Aguilar continues to impress me. That's all I'm going to say on that one. He's been able to make the plays and everything. He went 23 of 31, threw for 288 yards and threw for 2 touchdowns. That's just amazing to me. And then we also have Star Thomas, 12 carries and 3 touchdowns. Chris Brazel, 125 receiving yards, which is not in which he had 9 receptions and 2 touchdowns. And yeah, that's really all I gotta say. But the thing about it is, with this being an FCS team, you get to see Joey Aguilar at home for the first time as a member of the Vols, and he's also going to be, making his first SEC start this week. However, I'm just wondering, like, what are your thoughts on it? Like, of course, ETSU did score 17, but Tennessee scored 72. What are your thoughts on the game?
Now, yeah, Joey B does look really impressive, but B defense though just I don't know, like guys secondary because is not that good this year.
First, I'll take the secondary, of course, it's also been announced for the Georgia game, of course, Jermon McCoy, Ricky Gibson still out. But however, I do think this, though, and we'll get to Georgia here in a second, but I do think this, that I think we'll be fine, really, without them, in my opinion, just because, like, I really think that, like, the defense is still able to make some plays. It's just, like, I think the issue is, like, Tennessee's leaving just a bit, like, just leaving some holes in the secondary, like you said. And I think if Tennessee could figure out a way to close the holes, then I think the secondary would be able to will be able to basically be a big part of this defense. And that's just what I got to say about that. Then, of course, now as we move on to Georgia talk, both teams are 2-0. Tennessee hosting the game, and also, what's happening on Saturday? Checkered Neyland, and of course, it's serious when it gets to Checkered Neyland. So, and honestly, in my opinion, Checkered Neyland is probably one of the hardest environments to play in. That's just me. But like, but however, for the first time in a while, Tennessee actually is slightly the favorite in ESPN analytics to win this game. 51.5% Tennessee to 48.5% Georgia. And I was looking at these earlier. Season leaders, of course, Aguilar getting the having 535 passing yards compared to Gunnar Stockton. And of course, 5 touchdowns compared to Stockton's 2. Star Thomas and Star Thomas, of course, leading. Sorry, this is still loading. There we go. Star Thomas with 24 carries for 3 touchdowns compared to Nathan Frazier's 25 carries and 2 touchdowns. Receiving yards, Chris Brazel with 14 receptions, 2 touchdowns compared to Zachariah Branch with 6 receptions and 1 touchdown. And then Joshua Josephs with 2 sacks compared to CJ Allen's 1. And then we have Arion Carter with 13 tackles compared to Raylan Wilson's 4. Here's the thing. I personally think this. I think this game could go either way, honestly. And I personally think that, that this is going to be a toss-up, I think. I just think that I just think that's just all I think. Because I personally feel better about now than, yeah, On, you still there? Oh, man. Okay, sorry, Mew, I just, sorry, guys, had a bit of technical difficulties there. Yeah, I feel way better now about Georgia than I do, like, back then. It basically, just heck, Tennessee was actually close to beating Georgia last year, if you remember that. And then, of course, in my opinion, they were playing the refs. I'll be serious. If you go back and watch that game, you can tell, like heck, I don't remember who this was, but when there was clearly a fumble that they called an incomplete pass, like it literally was. I'll be serious. Like, dude caught it, and then takes 2 steps, he fumbles it. Refs called an incomplete pass. How does that make any sense? Like, that's clearly a fumble. And then, of course, and I personally think that the way Tennessee's been able to get downfield is something that I think is worth noting. I think as long as Tennessee could keep getting downfield, they'll have a shot. And that's just what I'm going to say there. And the thing about Georgia is, they start the season with the 45-7 win against Marshall. But here's the key. They play Austin Peay State University last week, only won 28-6. And the reason why I mention this is because Austin Peay is an FCS team, and they're only able to win like by a small margin. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, there are people saying, "Oh, Austin Peay beat MTSU." MTSU, you have to realize that the fact that most of their wins are like close wins. Like last year, they barely beat Tennessee Tech, which was a FCS team, and that's just what I think. But the fact that Austin Peay was able to keep it close with Georgia just kind of proves that Georgia may have some work to do before heading into this game. And for Georgia, we got for Georgia, I feel like Tennessee's got to do great on defense. They got to get down the field. They have to stop Georgia, like I mentioned already. The secondary, I think, has to step up, like you mentioned. And what do you think about this?
Now, I think last week Georgia might have just been resting a little bit because Kirby Smart's like one of the smartest coaches in the game. No pun intended, but I think he'll give Tennessee get run for their money. Because
Yeah,
maybe
no.
because it's gonna be hyper later. Since 2022, Tennessee only had one loss, and it was against Georgia in 2023.
Yeah, like the wait, you said only one loss?
Yeah, well, since 2022 at Nylander.
Yeah, yeah. That's the yeah, there's also another thing too. Like you also have to realize this that I don't think this Georgia team is as good as, as many people think. Like that's just in my opinion. Of course, you have Carson Beck transferring to Miami, which we're not going to talk about. Um, and we also have like a bunch of guys getting drafted, and of course with Tennessee now having their quarterback who can get downfield, I feel like that as long as Tennessee puts points on the board and is able to get the defensive stops, they got a shot. And I think every Tennessee and Georgia fan knows what happened the last time Tennessee beat Georgia, the Dobb nail. Hey guys, so this is actually an add-on to the video. Unfortunately, while I was downloading it, the file corrupted a little bit. So I figured I'd just give you a brief summary of what we talked about. We talked about mostly like Nico mostly, and we also talked about the rankings, and we also talked about like the upsets that really happened. Of course, our thoughts on USF and Florida mostly, but however, I do think this that basically that game. Don't get me wrong. I personally feel like that USF, like being ranked, should have happened, but Florida, of course, getting unranked after that, I feel like that's a bit of an overreaction. Only reason why I say that is because, like Florida, basically, now they did lose to a Group of Five team, but it wasn't an FCS team, and that's just what I think. And for Max, like for Max, he agreed that also like Florida's coach, Coach Spurrier, he I personally think that this could also be the final season for Spurrier, if he continues to like lose the games like that. But you just never know. But however, now the issue is now with Florida, of course, having that loss to USF. How do other teams who are playing Florida take advantage? And that's just really what we talked about mostly. And we also finished talking about the Tennessee Georgia game. Of course, what we thought about was like key to win and everything, and the fact that like Tennessee being able to, if they can show up and get downfield and play great defense, then they have a shot. And that's just what I think. We also did briefly talk about the Dobb nail boot and everything. So yeah. And all right, so I'm gonna end it right there, guys. Um, Sorry, it's not the long video that we promised. Unfortunately, like I said, as I was making this, we unfortunately had the file corrupt, and yeah, so that's why I had to give you all a brief summary. So I'm sorry it's not the best, but hey, we'll try everything we can to not have this happen again. That being said, God bless, God bless, and have a good night.